Yeah, Mark Harrison, Financial Services Authority. I'm also a research fellow in the Centre for Heritage at the University of Kent, and I had the delight of second-year Generation Z students in my tutorial group this year. So forgive me if I'm a little jaded. So, does Historic England take this topic seriously? Have a quick look at that. Develop and deliver new and innovative approaches to prevent crime and antisocial behaviour within the historic environment. Don't think it gets any clearer than that, does it? And in terms of a definition, this was put together by myself and the former head of legal and general counsel at Historic England, Mike Harlow, on a train coming back from Cambridge. And we had to make it cop-proof, you lot over there, because you start putting a list that's definitive, exhaustive, cops goes, not on the list, mate. So, any offence. So it takes account of current legislation, future legislation, and anything else in between. Harm beyond financial loss. A lot of the things we deal with are invaluable. But the cops don't have a box for that, do you? Is it more than £5,000, mate? Yeah, it's the Staffordshire hoard. It's invaluable. So getting that concept across has been tricky. Heritage assets, you'll notice HE personnel doesn't say designated assets. Our view is the definition is about in the view of the victim. If they feel it's a heritage asset, it's heritage crime. And setting, and Paul, you're absolutely right in terms of antisocial behaviour, is if you don't deal with those small signal crimes at a very early stage, it can then lead on to more serious and significant offending. And we are the temporary guardians. We have relatively short lifespans. We've got to leave this in as good as or better condition for the future. And one of the things that my friend Andy Bliss really led on was integrating cultural property and museum collections and the art side of the world into this area of business. And you'll hear from Andy later. So when we do the training, and I notice cops over there, very nice, wearing your Heritage Crime Officer's badge. And I saw a new one, Heritage PSV. Is that public service vehicle? Is it? Now, who'd have thought, Alison James, Paul Jeffrey, Martin Newman, that 12 years ago we'd have that type of thing? So we have moved a long way. But here's some examples of what Paul has highlighted to you. And this is part of our accredited training now. Part of the test is to say to candidates, what has happened here or what could happen here? So you're actually building the preventative and the investigative angle into each of those. But we don't have time to do that today. So my piece of work actually started with the commissioning of what became known as the Nighthawking Report. And Andrew Richards and I were actually cited in this report as having effective practice in Kent. Kent Police was the first force in the country to actually have heritage crime. So I was invited or appointed to be the heritage lead back in 2010. Well, what I wanted to do was to draw us back to the last 12 months to look at those active and emerging threats. Underfall Harbour in Bristol. Broke your heart, didn't it? You know, one of the oldest boatyards in the country. How many registered vessels did we lose?
So one totally destroyed, 2 others seriously damaged.
The emotional impact with the shipwrights and losing their tools, off the scale. This has changed the heritage crime piece forever. I've never seen so much political intrigue in such a case. It's not a listed building. It's old, it's wonky, not listed. But the regional mayor saying, I'm going to get this built brick by brick. And the enforcement order is, it will be built. Interestingly, the owner said, but not where it stood. And there it was. And there it was. So the question is, what are these people doing? Well, yes, some are collecting bricks for eBay, but these 5 people are mourning a building. They're actually putting down wreaths of flowers and cards. If that doesn't show politicians that this is important to people, what have we got to do? 2 weeks later, sorry, changed the order. So that fire actually came out the week that we signed our agreement with the National Fire Chiefs Council. So for the first time in history, heritage is inbuilt into the arson reduction strategy with the National Fire Chiefs Council. So hopefully we'll have heritage fire officers shortly. Wellington Arch, if you haven't been to the top, please go to the top. And that's what it looks like now. We're having terrible trouble getting the paint off. Ironically, Just Stop Oil used oil-based paint. Arrested, charged with criminal damage. At the moment, there is no specific offence of damaging a listed building. And this is the one that really has grabbed international attention politically, because it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Iconic, eh? Hit the wall. Can't say too much because it's a live case and we're waiting a charging decision. All of our work is underpinned with leadership across policing, prosecution services, and John, we got Welsh Government and Cadw to sign last year, and we updated the MOU to include antisocial behaviour specifically. Police and Crime Commissioner elections in 2 weeks' time, we're likely to lose a number of friendly commissioners. New people will come in. This is the way we sustain it, through the National World Crime Network, and heritage crime is a key priority for the network. And we need to get into their police and crime plans. They have 100 days to draw up their plans. Seek out your new commissioner, encourage them to put heritage in. We sit in 2 government boards at the Home Office, handling stolen goods, so tackling those illicit markets and antisocial behaviour. So we're getting that nice synergy between Home Office, DCMS, DEFRA, all the other departments that we've worked with before. And we now sit firmly within the serious organised acquisitive crime strategy. So what's that? It's property-related crime. People stealing property to make money. And there we go. So we sit there alongside robbery, business crime. And the perennial issues for us have been the theft of metal, particularly theft of lead from our historic church buildings. We succeeded with the Scrap Metal Dealers Act to control that side of things, but there's no requirement for scrap dealers to have a smart water or a Selector Mark UV torch, so you can't require them to check for it. So working with Andy and the team, we're looking at going back to physical marking, but to enhance the forensic markers. And we're training scrap dealers on what heritage metal looks like and what they can expect to come through the back door. If we find 8 tons of lead after they've been trained, it's easier to prosecute them. And we have an all-party parliamentary group for heritage crime. They published a report back in January, and you can see here that they're asking for specific coding for the theft of heritage metals, that police and crime commissioners should put this in their plans, and that there should be some way for the prosecution service to aggravate heritage loss and damage. And this is predicated on the techniques that they use for hate crime. So if interview with the victim or anybody else, if it's to do with gender, disability, etc., it can be aggravated. In terms of innovation, and I'm aware that one of the other sessions going on at the same time is also talking about innovation. So we have a STEM, a science, technology, engineering and mathematics group at the University of Kent. We coordinate it. We have 9 universities now, and we call it Hawkeye, Heritage and Wildlife Crime Innovation. You'll notice it's the same logo as Heritage Watch, but with nice colours. And here's Dr. Rosie Everett taking soil samples. And we've got the Cheshire team here today. Yeah? Really good job. Definitively put the offenders at the scene with their Bronze Age axes. There's one of the axes. They thought they'd cleaned it. No. And our big piece of work at the moment is the scourge of graffiti. A really big one. And we're coming up with some artificial intelligence techniques to actually help us look at the formulation of paints to see, track where the paints are coming from. And this is based on a piece of work we did 3 years ago using a smartphone to develop an algorithm to identify historic lead. And we got it up to 92% accuracy. Doesn't tell the officer which church it's come from yet, but it's saying this is, you need to look at this. If prosecution is a measure of success, then we're pretty good. Who'd have thought 12 years ago we'd be sending people to jail for night hawking? In fact, Andrew and I were told it was career limiting. I actually got told that I was reversing my car down a one-way street to nowhere. And this was a civil matter. Well, I think 24 years in jail between 4 offenders really does underline that it's not a civil matter. We've got people going to jail now for stealing from our church buildings. And 2 weeks ago, we published the National Strategic Threat Assessment to show those active and emerging threats. And it shows that the theft from our museums is very much on the rise. In fact, we saw one, the gold toilet from Blenheim Palace. Do you see that one? Police have now charged 5 offenders for that. I can't think of a pun. We're highlighting more accurate recording processes, the same as the all-party parliamentary group. Metal theft from churches is going down, but enforcement is going up. But as Andy will tell you, it's cyclical, isn't it? It will come round again. We think they've probably moved into retail theft at the moment, but it will come back. Night hawking has gone down, but enforcement has gone up. And I would say a big part of that is due to the training that we've done with detecting groups. And the quality of intelligence coming in from the detectors is very high, and we respond. Let's say that twice. Who's been editing this? I think that one should say stone theft has gone up. So stone theft has gone up. Paving slabs from our churchyard, grave markers from our churchyards. And I think this is playing into the fact that there is no control in the same way there is for scrap metal for reclamation, as they call it. So architectural salvage, they don't have to keep records. They can make a cash transaction. Clearly an omission, but there's no parliamentary time for that. Certainly not now and not into the next parliamentary session. So we need to keep finding vehicles around other legislation that we can make our heritage points. So that's my little bit for now. No questions now, is there?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Very much.